Good afternoon. Hi.
Hello. Then I'm pleased to introduce Reyna Ubeda, and she studied industrial engineer, and she completed a master on international management from the University for Economics and Environmental, Nürtingen-Geislingen in 2014 in Switzerland. She joined the ITU Standardization Bureau in 2015. She the advisor of the ITU study group working on environment, climate change, and circular economy. Then the mic is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today, and thank you for the invitation. I saw that the program was very interesting this morning. You have learned a lot about the ICTs and the environmental part, and now I would like to provide a little bit more information about international standards and the work of the International Telecommunication Union. I will be sharing my screen shortly. So I hope that now you can see my screen.
Yes, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to talk about bringing sustainability to smart cities using standards. The International Telecommunication Union, for those that don't know it, is the United Nations Specialized Agency for Information and Communication Technologies, and its role is to facilitate peaceful relations, international cooperation between peoples, and economic and social development by means of efficient telecommunication services. ITU is comprised of 193 member states and over 900 companies, university, and international regional organizations. ITU from industry, academia work together with governments and regional international organizations to shape the future of the ICT development. So what is nice of the ITU is the diverse membership that it has. ITU is divided in 3 sectors. We have the standardization sector, that is the one that I work for, then the development sector, and the radio communication sector. So each sector has a separate mandate. ITU is recognized as by WTO as one of the 3 organizations of standards development organization together with ISO and IEC. So with reference to environment, which is the main talk of today, one of the key areas of activities of ITU is the work on climate change and helping using digital technologies for monitoring, mitigating, and adapting to climate change. Also on e-waste, protecting human health and the environment from e-waste. We help countries on how to also develop a policy on e-waste, or also we have standards on sustainable management of e-waste, and also how to achieve a circular economy. And energy efficiency, facilitating digital solutions for energy efficiency by driving down emissions and reducing carbon footprint. The work of the ITU, how we support the environment and climate change and circular economy, at least I'm gonna talk about the standardization part. We have a study group 5 in ITU. The terminology in ITU is a little bit curious, but study group is like a working group, and we have 11 study group in total in the Telecommunication Standardization Bureau, and each study group study a specific topic, let's say. In this case, study group 5 is focused on environment, climate change, and circular economy, but there are other study groups that focus on smart cities and IoT, multimedia, or quality of services, etc. So to support the environment, we have the development of standards in ITUT study group 5. We have also a focus group on environmental efficiency for artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. And this group goes both way. First, how the environmental efficiency of these technologies of artificial intelligence, blockchain, digital twins, and also how this technology could help for the environmental efficiency. We also are in line with the Sustainable Development Goals. With the Paris Agreement, we try to reach it, and we participate in the COP regularly. And also we have the Connect 2030 agenda. The Connect 2030 agenda is an ITU agenda which has some sustainability targets. So some of the targets that, well, there we are, as I said before, we're aligned to the SDGs. Some of the SDGs that we are more focused on are on clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, and climate action. Study Group 5 is also responsible for the protection of telecommunication networks and equipment for interference and lightning, electromagnetic compatibility, uh, achieve also the human exposure to electromagnetic fields, achieving energy efficiency and sustainable clean energy in ICTs, methodologies for assessing the environmental impact of ICT, published guidelines for using ICTs in an eco-friendly way, dealing with e-waste issue, enhancing rare metal recycling and energy efficient of ICTs, including infrastructure. We are going to see in the next few slides some of the standards and work that we have developed, and also how these standards could help the industry and could help governments and as well. So as I mentioned before, one of the main tasks of Study Group 5 is to develop standards. These are international standards that are free of charge. We do some research and pre-standardization work that is through the focus groups, that the focus group are open platform that everybody could participate. In Study Group 5, it's just reserved for members, and also awareness raising. We organize several events to help governments also to share their work, and also to raise awareness of how, for example, for a sustainable management of e-waste or on energy efficiency, etc. And we active collaborate with other organizations, other standards organization, and also other UN agencies. Well, as I mentioned before, these are some of the roles of Study Group 5. The work of Study Group 5 on the environmental part and energy efficiency and circular economy is divided in questions. And question is like like, how can I say it? Like, well, we study a specific topic. So all the questions related to EMF and electromagnetic compatibility, I'm not showing them right now, but right now, this is what the topics that we have. We work on environmental efficiency of digital technologies, e-waste and circular economy and supply chain management, climate change and assessment of digital technologies in the framework of the SDGs and the Paris Agreement, climate change mitigation and smart energy solution, adaptation to climate change, and building circular sustainable cities and communities. As I mentioned before, our standards are free of charge, and there are over 100 standards available in our website. Information and communication technology, and I think you have seen it all during this morning in the other presentations, are becoming an integral part of cities' response to recurring sustainability challenges, as well as global emergencies such as the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that right now we have seen also how the potential of ICTs with the pandemic. And well, one of the example is that today I'm able to share with you the experience of ITU not being there with you in the building. And Also, it's very important to know that it is estimated that 70% of the world's population will live in cities by 2050. And this will become some challenges on the sustainability part, because then you have um, pollution, you have traffic, then you have several challenges that um, governments and also the industry need to see how to handle. So sustainable urbanization has become a key policy point to among administration across the world. How do cities use ICTs? Using ICTs and digital technologies offer cities efficiency in urban operations and services, the means to improve quality of life, and ways to cultivate environmental sustainability. As we move forward on striving to achieve the SDGs, cities are using ICTs and digital technologies to address these urban challenges, as I mentioned before. Using ICTs and digital technologies offers urban stakeholders efficiency in the urban operation and services. Sorry, I mentioned it already. So sustainability and smartness are long-term propositions. However, they necessitate thoughtful planning and progress measurement and monitoring, as an evidence-based approach relying on relevant high-quality data and utilization of best practices is needed to achieve this. Raising awareness is very important as cities grow more reliant on ACTs and other digital technologies. There is an urgent need to raise awareness on the environmental performance and sustainability aspects of their application. It is estimated that ICT sector accounts for the 1.4% of overall global emissions. Where does the ICT impacts on GHG emissions, where this comes from? Well, it includes industry, buildings, transportation, travel, agriculture, and waste. ICTs are also part of the solution. ICTs can also keep because of the role they play in monitoring, mitigating, and adapting to climate change. And it has the potential to slash the GHG emissions by 20% by 2030, according to some studies. How they can help to reduce the GHG emission by the introduction of more efficient equipment and networks, substituting for travel and replacing physical objects with electronic ones, using ICT-based systems to monitor weather and the environment worldwide. How can we meet our targets? To achieve a successful digital transformation, taking into consideration the climate targets set in Paris agreements and the SDGs, we need to focus not only on limiting the emission of the ITC sector, but to achieve net zero within the sector. And here I will provide more examples on how standards support the pathway to net zero. For example, for cities and governments, it helps to reduce the carbon emissions, achieve a sustainable digital transformation, improve uptake of green energy, achieve target sets in the Paris Agreement. For the ICT sector, provide technical guidelines to implement green energy solutions, provide measurement tools to evaluate the progress, bring low-cost connectivity to rural areas, and help them also to reach net zero. Allow me to provide you some examples of the standards. I will not go in detail because there is a lot of information and also not enough time. But there are some standards on smart energy solutions, on data center, on telecom sites and telecommunication rooms. And the main objective of these standards is to achieve a green transition, reduce the carbon emissions, improve energy efficiency, extend the product life, and also reduce cost. Some other example of standards is the smart energy solution for cities and home application. Right now, it is this standard is in the first stage of approval. That's why it has the work draft, but it is expected that it's approved in the next 2 months. And this recommendation mainly focus on smart energy solution in different application scenarios, basically on energy saving and carbon emission reduction. Besides applied in the field of ICT, such as space station, data center, and telecom center, smart energy solutions have eventually applied in cities and home as the advanced update of the ICT technology. Following some of the aspects that are taken into consideration in the recommendation is the smart energy application for cities include business district, community, industrial park, transportation network, and municipal area. Some other standards that I mentioned before, as you saw, that some of the GHG emissions come also from buildings. So we have some recommendations that are on the efficiency on buildings. One is the sustainable and intelligent building services that define the key concept and minimum requirements of a sustainable intelligent building, and define the functions and requirements of IoT nodes in building. And one recent recommendation that was approved last year, it was a methodology for assessing and scoring the sustainability performance of office building. So this is a methodology to assess and score office buildings and include best practices on improving energy efficiency in building. And this is a standard that is used for existing buildings, and these standards specifically will be implemented in the next year in the ITU buildings to evaluate also the efficiency of it, and has, because the potential of the standard, or the benefit of the standard is as like a self-assessment tool, and then you can identify where to improve depending on the scoring that you got. Some other standards that we have, just to give you an overview that I mentioned, is on the e-waste management and circular economy. For example, we are working, or standards are helping countries for the sustainable e-waste management, and we have a project with Argentina and Costa Rica in implementing a recommendation on how to manage the e-waste. And countries in Latin America, there are some countries that are a little bit more developed. There are some countries that still not have a legislation on e-waste, but the implementation of this recommendation is helping them also to see where are the weaknesses, where are the ways of opportunity, where things in the process are not okay, and how to improve it. We expect that we finished with a case study that will be ready in December, and this will give more information on how this standard was implemented. But right now we are developing an inventory of e-waste, to give you an example. So we have a standards with the ITU has called for the ICT industry to reduce the GHG emissions by 45% from 2020 to 2030. And we have a standards on the greenhouse emission trajectories for the ICT sector compatible with the UNFCCC Paris Agreement. It's among the first standards that directly support the ICT sector to reach net zero and the Paris Agreement. It was developed in collaboration with other entities such as GESI, GSMA, and SBTI. And something that is very important for you to know, that mobile operators, over the 30%, are committed to the science-based target. And also to reach a net zero. So this is it was a short presentation. I think the organizers could say that I am good in timing. So I don't know if you have any questions that I will be happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Reyna. And now have time for questions. Yes, please. Here, the middle. Right here. Yeah, it's working. Yeah, it's working.
Merci. Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm a PhD student, and I was wondering if you, in your pathway toward net zero emission in the ICT sector, have you introduced, or have you taken into account rebound effect of what you are going to put into action?
Right now, experts, there are several methodologies and there are several standards that are working on it. One of the rebound effect, I think, is something that is under study, but it's not included in that standard that I presented before, but it's something that is taken into consideration. The standards that I presented now is just an example, but there are some other standards that are under development.
Okay, thank you. So maybe you will wait before going into action for those studies on the effects of rebound effect, because I was wondering if you start going on the pathway to action to go to net zero in the ICT sector, and that you're actually doing some action that have counter effects on impact, on environmental and social impacts. Maybe it's counterproductive.
Good point, but I will raise that with the experts that we work on that to check on that part. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers and for your presentation.
Yeah, another question now here at the back of, and after, yeah, thank you.
Hello, and thank you for the presentation. So first I have a small remark. At some point in the presentation, you say that some studies show that we could have a 20% reduction by 2030. And it's, the last speaker just spent half an hour explaining that these studies were probably very flawed. So maybe you want to be careful with these figures. And so my question is on the...
Thank you. And I didn't listen to the previous one. I should have and remove it quickly.
And my question is on net zero. So if the goal is, so from what I understand, that means that the ICT industry should be able to somehow reduce, remove CO2 from the atmosphere, and how is that possible?
Well, they are still under study how to reach, well, net zero totally. I guess it will not be possible, but how to reduce, there is still under study. There is a recommendation that is under approval, that is a guideline on how to help the ICT sector to reach net zero, to give some steps that that could help them. I will need to open it and to tell you a little bit how it is, because right now I don't have it in my mind. I'm sorry.
Okay, so because I understand that the goal is to reduce the emissions, but if the goal is really net zero, that means that we need not only to reduce emissions, but to find a way to make negative emissions. And I don't really understand how the ICT can do this. But I mean.
Well, as I said, there are several parts that we are working on, on the part on energy efficiency, data center, which are a big contributor also of GHG emissions. So how I see with the technology that is emerging and it's improving, there is a reduction. So maybe it will not be totally zero, but it will be a reduction on the GHG emission. So these are things that still under study. There are new standards that are being developed and in order to help that, but because to reach net zero is until 2050. So this is a work in progress.
Thank you.
Hi, Reyna. Thanks a lot for your talk. I'm Jan Tobias Mühlberg from TU Leuven. You mentioned in one of your last slides that a lot of telecom operators are committed to science-based targets. I think 30% or 40% or something like that was the number.
Yeah.
So what I'm interested in is if you commit to science-based targets in the ICT sector as an infrastructure operator who is, building heavy telephone towers, things like that, you are actually obliged to do a life cycle assessment of that infrastructure that you're building. And I'm wondering to what extent ITU is supporting these telecom operators in doing these life cycle assessments. Are there standards in that directions or standards towards building sustainable equipment, something like that?
Yes, just give me 1 second to mention that there are some standards on life cycle assessment. There are also some standards on the part of the circular economy, the designing process, on the scoring. Just give me just 1 second to mention some of the methodologies that have been developed on this direction. This is the one of the advantage that I have been remote. I can check the website directly.
Thanks a lot.
1 second. So here, may I share my screen again, or not? It's not possible.
No, of course you can.
Okay. So if you go to the ITU website, there we have some. Here's the methodology for environmental life cycle assessment of information and telecommunication. Of ICT goods, network, and services. That it presents a life cycle assessment. These are standards that was developed in 2014, but of course these standards are being also updated and revised in order to add new information. But if you can see here, we have several methodologies helping the ICT sector to that, and also the one that I mentioned on circular economy and to help designers. It's the one on the assessment method for circular scoring, because one of the first step is also the designing part. I hope that answered your question.
Thanks a lot. Yes.
Thank you. Another question? Yes, we have 2 questions at the back. Nicola.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. I have 2 questions. The first one is there, so it's related to how is applied the recommendation. Like, is there any evaluation on how the standardization mitigate climate change afterwards? For example, I don't know, so I made a quick research and I've seen that ITU give some events on climate change since 2008. So is there, since this date, is there something changing since 15 years ago? And is there anything or any mechanisms to prevent greenwashing? Some people can use your standardization or your recommendation and to use it only for advertising. I don't know, but maybe that happens a lot for label. So yeah, that was it.
Okay, if I understood correctly your question, the first one was whether we have statistics how the standards have changed the ICT sector or have helped them. Is that correct?
Yes, or if you have any example of success story of ITU standards.
Just to put you an example, let me go back to sharing my screen. Because right now we participated with the UN Energy, and this year was dedicated to energy at the UN level. So we participated with a case study on a success story in China, where the equipment, for example, from a company has ITU standard implemented, and this has helped to improve the efficiency, which is the standards related to data center. Let me go quickly to it. And this report that I mentioned is already published. It was published by the UN Energy. Just give me 1 second to tell you the standard. Sorry, it's a standard on data center infrastructure management system based on big data and artificial intelligence technology. And the other standards also that was implemented, that we know that was implemented also in China, is the smart energy solutions for data centers. So I can provide to T-Vault some information of where you can find this success story, if that will be of interest. And I think I'm not showing my screen, but sorry. So what I mentioned is these standards on smart energy solution for data centers. And the other one is the one on data center infrastructure management system based on big data and artificial intelligence technology. And your second question was whether there is just publicity or they are really implementing our standards. That's right?
Actually, it's related to the second part of the first question. So it was like, how do you know that it mitigates climate change? So maybe they can actually implement the standards, but at the end, the absolute like the emission of the company haven't reduced, so that's it. So maybe it can use as a greenwashing. So I'm hoping and asking if there is a mechanism to prevent it.
Well, our standards are not mandatory. Each industry, each company decide to implement it or not. What I can tell you is that because of our membership, we have we have a big percent of industry participated in this. So you can see that they have their sustainability department and their experts working on how to improve their processes and equipment. But we don't have a way to tell you. I don't have a way to tell you, well, we are doing this to double check how they are doing.
Thank you. We will have time for one last question.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. Maybe this question is very specific, but I consulted the standard for IoT nodes of smart cities, and you mentioned that we need to use specific semantics for standardization of IoT nodes. Did you develop some kind of these semantics, or have you document about these semantics?
If that may, for that question, because I think that's more on IoT and you are talking more about study group 20, and I don't have the information with me. but I can consult some experts to see if there is a way to show you that. If you can write me an email to tsbsg5@itu. I can send it to Thibault as well with your specific question and then to let you know. Sorry that I cannot answer right away here.
Thank you. Thank you anyway very much, Reyna. And we can stop here the discussion with you. You come back this afternoon, I suppose? Yeah, okay. Yeah, to the panel, then we will be pleased to exchange again with you this afternoon. And now it's close up the morning session, and I would like to thank all of the remote people that they have listening to all of us this morning for this first part. And now we can move to the